The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with murmurs and whispers. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in concentric rows, each distinguished by their unique appearances: slithering tendrils, compound eyes, hardened scales, shimmering feathers. At the center, the Jaren Collective ambassador, a hulking figure with jagged armor and unblinking eyes, pounded one clawed hand on the table, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Humanity," he sneered, "is a weak species, dependent on words and agreements. They talk of peace and coexistence, but they're incapable of true power. The question is, why do we even grant them a seat on this council?" A thin, frail alien from the Mirage species, a race known for their stoic wisdom, spoke softly. "Humanity is young. Perhaps they need more time to understand our ways." "Time?" the Jaren roared. "They've had enough time. They're weak and afraid of war. They cower and plea, hoping others will protect them. What kind of species deserves respect if it lacks the will to fight?" A ripple of agreement passed through the room, nods and murmurs of approval. The decision-makers within the council shared skeptical glances, their collective attitude clear. Humanity's reluctance to engage in conflict was viewed not as wisdom but as weakness. Many on the council had come to believe that if the humans ever faced true aggression, they would simply fold. Just as the debate grew louder, a signal flickered on the central holodisplay. An urgent message from the outer territories. Council members turned their attention to the screen as the image of a distant human outpost appeared, flames and debris littering the landscape. The Jaren ambassador's voice cut in again, smug and triumphant. "Our scouts have moved in. The humans will surrender, as they always do. They'll run crying to us, begging for protection." A few quiet chuckles rippled through the chamber. The Jaren's certainty was infectious. To most on the council, it seemed obvious that humanity was no threat. In their eyes, humans lacked the strength, the courage, the conviction to truly defend themselves. They were viewed as a naive race, clinging to ideals of peace in a universe that respected only power. Within minutes, the anticipated response came. A lone human envoy, unarmed and humble, entered the chamber. His gaze swept the room, absorbing the dismissive, almost pitying looks aimed his way. Still, he stood tall, radiating a calm resolve that the council members interpreted as foolish optimism. "Honorable members of the council," he began, his voice steady, "Earth requests that you honor the pact we signed. The Jaren Collective has invaded our space, violating the principles this council was founded upon. We ask for your intervention to protect our colonies." The council members exchanged condescending looks. A representative from the cold, crystalline Emra species leaned forward, her tone dripping with condescension. "And what would humanity do if we declined? Would you negotiate with your invaders? Offer them your world on a silver platter?" A quiet, mocking laughter filled the chamber, as though the question was rhetorical. The Jaren ambassador sneered, adding, "Concessions are wise for the weak. Perhaps you should surrender to avoid inevitable destruction." The human envoy's expression tightened, though he kept his calm. He spoke again, quieter but with a determined edge. "We've come to you in good faith, honoring the values this council claims to uphold. We ask for your help, not because we're incapable of defense, but because we value peace." Another round of mocking murmurs. The council had made its decision without a formal vote. The message was clear: humanity would stand alone. They dismissed the envoy's words as empty bravado, interpreting his plea as a sign of helplessness. To the council, humans had revealed themselves as idealists, naive to the harsh realities of the universe. As the envoy left the chamber, he paused at the doorway, glancing back at the assembly of alien species, their faces showing only indifference. A flash of understanding crossed his face. He had come seeking allies but found only scorn. He walked out with a heavy heart, aware of the council's true nature and humanity's isolation. Returning to Earth, the envoy conveyed the grim news. The council would not intervene. Earth's leaders listened in silence, their faces hardening as the truth sank in. They were abandoned, but they were not defeated. The human envoy returned to Earth with the bitter realization that the council had turned its back on them. In a quiet, dimly lit room filled with Earth's top leaders, He recounted the disdainful looks, the mocking laughter, and the council's dismissive response. Their request for intervention was met with sneers and condescension, as though humanity's plea for peace was a signal of surrender rather than a desire for justice. A heavy silence hung in the air as his words sank in. One of the military advisors finally spoke, his voice tense. "They've left us to fend for ourselves. They think we're incapable of fighting back." The envoy nodded, his face set in grim determination. "They see us as weak. They think we're too scared to defend what's ours. They expect us to fold, to beg, or worse, to surrender." The leaders exchanged dark, knowing glances. This rejection was more than a refusal of help. It was a blatant insult, a dismissal of humanity's strength and resolve. But instead of despair, a steely resolve spread through the room. For years, Earth had worked quietly, preparing, building, and adapting. Though they had never flaunted their capabilities, they had been far from idle. One of the leaders tapped a hidden console, bringing up classified files labeled Project Phoenix on a secure display. The others nodded in silent agreement, their expressions firm. Humanity had a plan, one that had been devised for precisely this situation, a last resort protocol to protect Earth from existential threats, developed and refined over decades. They'd kept Project Phoenix a closely guarded secret, a collection of advanced technologies and strategic contingencies designed to safeguard Earth. It was a system so hidden, so veiled in secrecy, that even the Council hadn't suspected its existence. Now, with no allies to rely on and their very existence threatened, humanity was ready to unveil its hidden strength. The project's core was Earth's stealth fleet, ships equipped with state-of-the-art cloaking technology, impenetrable by the usual detection methods. These vessels weren't just hidden, they were ghost ships, invisible to most forms of scanning, capable of positioning themselves right under an enemy's nose without detection. But the fleet was only part of the plan. Humanity's scientists had also perfected precision AI weapon systems, an advanced arsenal designed to strike with unparalleled accuracy. Guided by adaptable, machine learning algorithms, these systems could lock onto targets with chilling efficiency, predicting and countering enemy maneuvers in real time. Additionally, humanity had developed a series of cyber warfare tactics specifically engineered to disrupt and dismantle alien technology. They had spent years studying Council member systems, familiarizing themselves with weaknesses and creating code that could infiltrate, disable, or even repurpose enemy tech. As the leaders reviewed the plans, one of them spoke, a spark of defiance in their voice. "If they think we're weak, they're about to learn how wrong they are. We didn't seek conflict, but we're prepared to face it." Another leader added, "The Council left us no choice. We'll show them that we aren't just capable of defending ourselves, we're capable of ending any threat that comes our way." Word of the Council's abandonment spread across Earth, but rather than inciting fear, it ignited a fierce sense of unity and purpose. Citizens rallied, and soldiers prepared. They knew the odds, but they also knew their strength, a strength the Council had chosen to ignore. Earth's leaders broadcasted a message to the people, reassuring them that humanity would stand strong, that they would protect their homes and their future. As Earth mobilized, a calm, determined energy filled every command center, every ship, and every briefing room. Soldiers and officers alike understood that they were about to face an enemy with vastly superior resources and experience, yet they were undaunted. This was a fight for survival, and humanity had never been more ready to rise to the challenge. One of the highest-ranking commanders issued the final order, his voice steady and firm. "Activate Project Phoenix. Deploy the fleet. Let's show them what we're made of." In silence, cloaked ships left Earth's orbit, disappearing into the void, ready to intercept the approaching Jaren collective forces. Humanity was no longer waiting to be saved, they were taking control of their destiny, prepared to confront any who dared threaten them. The Jaren collective's warships glided through human territory with arrogant ease, their commanders confident of an easy conquest. They had expected little resistance, a weak, outdated fleet perhaps, something barely worth their attention. On their scanners, faint blips registered as small, non-threatening human reconnaissance ships scattered in distant formations, hardly a match for the firepower the Jaren had brought. With a collective smirk, they readied their weapons, eager to put humanity in its place. Then, without warning, the blips vanished. Confused, the Jaren commanders recalibrated their instruments, assuming technical errors. But before they could react, dozens of human ships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the Jaren fleet on all sides. The Jaren's laughter turned to shock as humanity's stealth fleet uncloaked, perfectly positioned to strike with devastating accuracy. The Jaren ships scrambled to activate their shields, but it was already too late. In swift, synchronized strikes, humanity's AI-guided weaponry locked onto the Jaren's critical systems with chilling precision. Explosions erupted across their hulls as the AI systems targeted and destroyed shield generators, weapons arrays, and navigation controls. The Jaren ships, so confident moments ago, found themselves unable to maneuver, unable to fight back. The human fleet moved with uncanny coordination, each ship communicating in perfect unison, executing a strategy the Jaren could barely comprehend. Every time a Jaren vessel tried to break formation, a human ship was there, blocking its path or disabling its systems. The Jaren commanders watched in horror as their ships, once the pinnacle of their might, were systematically dismantled by a fleet they'd considered inferior. As the battle raged on, humanity's cyber warfare systems activated, sending sophisticated viruses into the Jaren's communication networks. In seconds, their tactical data became scrambled, commands lagged, and entire lines of communication went dead. The Jaren's carefully coordinated assault dissolved into chaos. Ships collided, unable to coordinate evasive maneuvers. The human fleet continued its assault, hitting vulnerable spots with unnerving accuracy. One of the Jaren commanders, frantic and desperate, attempted to rally his fleet. "Regroup! Recalibrate your targeting! Fight back, you cowards!" But his orders fell on deaf ears, his voice drowned out by static as humanity's cyber onslaught severed the final lines of command. Isolated, each Jaren ship was forced to act alone, a fatal disadvantage against the flawless coordination of humanity's forces. The Galactic Council watched the battle unfold from their distant outposts, disbelief written on every face. Council members stared in shock as they witnessed the humans, those they'd dismissed as weak and fearful, unleashing a level of tactical prowess and technological sophistication that rivaled even their own forces. This wasn't just a defense, it was a masterclass in warfare, one that left the Council representatives speechless. As the last Jaren warship tried to limp away, hoping to escape the destruction, a single human vessel appeared beside it, targeting its engines with precision strikes. With a final burst, the Jaren ship was left drifting, powerless. Humanity had taken no prisoners, sent no warnings. They had engaged with the cold precision of those who understood the cost of survival. One by one, the Jaren ships began retreating, those that could still maneuver desperately seeking an escape route. But humanity's fleet had anticipated this, and they formed a perimeter, blocking every possible exit. The Jaren collective, humiliated and defeated, had no choice but to surrender or face annihilation. Back on the Council, the alien representatives exchanged looks of disbelief and dread. In the span of hours, their perception of humanity had been shattered. The humans weren't weak, nor were they afraid of war. They had simply chosen to withhold their strength until forced to use it. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Council reconvened in an atmosphere heavy with tension and uncertainty. The once assured representatives of each species were now subdued, their minds struggling to process the events they had just witnessed. The humans, a species they had dismissed and mocked, had repelled the Jaren collective with a ruthless precision that left no room for doubt. Whispers filled the chamber as council members debated, each struggling to understand how they could have underestimated humanity so completely. The human's envoy entered the chamber, his expression calm but resolute. He held himself with a quiet confidence that now commanded respect, his every step echoing in the previously hostile chamber. This time, there was no mocking laughter, no dismissive looks. The council members watched him closely, some with awe, others with a wary sense of respect. In that moment, they realized that their view of humanity had been irrevocably altered. The envoy paused, letting the silence stretch. When he finally spoke, His voice was steady but laced with an unmistakable edge. "Honorable members of the Council, I stand before you not to demand retribution or to seek alliances born of fear. I stand here simply to remind you of one truth: humanity values peace, but that does not mean we are defenseless." The room remained silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Many of the representatives shifted uncomfortably, each grappling with their own misjudgment. The Jaren ambassador, visibly shaken, sat in stunned silence, his bravado crushed. He had witnessed firsthand the strength humanity was capable of, and the shock of his defeat lingered in his eyes. The envoy continued, his tone unwavering. "We sought the Council's aid not out of weakness, but out of respect for the principles you claim to uphold. You refused us, believing we lacked the strength to defend ourselves. Today, we have shown you otherwise. Let this serve as a lesson, one that should remind us all that power is not always loud or boastful. Sometimes it is the quiet resolve to protect what we hold dear." Several council members nodded, their expressions a mix of respect and shame. The Mirash representative, who had previously viewed humanity with a degree of sympathy, now looked upon the envoy with admiration. She understood that humanity's strength wasn't merely in their technology or their military capabilities. It was in their spirit, their resilience, and their willingness to fight when pushed to the brink. A representative from the Emra species rose, addressing the envoy with newfound respect. "Earth has proven its strength today. We, as a council, failed to recognize your resolve, and for that, we offer our respect and our apology." The envoy nodded graciously but made no move to extend further pleasantries. Earth's actions had spoken for themselves. The council members felt a shift in the room, a recognition that humanity's place among them was no longer in question. They had earned their respect, not through threats or alliances, but by showing that they were capable of standing alone when necessary. As the meeting adjourned, the Jaren ambassador remained seated, staring blankly at the table. His defeat was not merely a military loss, it was a humbling reminder that arrogance had blinded him and his kind. Humanity had taught them all that underestimating others carried a price, one that he and the council had now paid. Walking out of the chamber, the human envoy felt a quiet satisfaction. Earth had shown its true strength, not as conquerors, but as defenders, willing to fight only when their hand was forced. The envoy knew that the council would remember this day, not as a day of conflict, but as the day they recognized humanity as equals. The message had been delivered. Humanity was no longer to be dismissed or belittled. They would take their place on the council, not as a weak, naive race but as a formidable force, one that sought peace but was prepared to defend its existence against any who threatened it. As he left, a final, unspoken understanding settled over the council members. They would treat humanity with the respect it deserved, for they had learned a valuable lesson. Power wasn't just in the size of one's fleet or the sophistication of one's weapons. Sometimes, true power lay in patience, restraint, and the quiet resolve to act only when pushed. And they knew, from this day forward, that humanity was a force they could no longer afford to underestimate.